deep inside the rainforest, where the canopy blocks most sunlight and the forest floor stays dim even during the day. Sudden flashes of bright orange begin moving between the trees. Several birds appear at once. Their bodies glow against the darkness. They hop rapidly between branches and exposed roots, lowering their heads, spreading their wings, and making short jumps toward one another. The movement happens quickly, then stops just as suddenly. One male pushes closer to the center of the clearing, while another shifts aside. Feathers flare briefly. Bright orange bodies move through shadow before disappearing again into dense vegetation. But this display begins much earlier. At the start of life, the bird does not resemble this bright figure at all. High against a shaded rock wall deep inside humid forest terrain, a female Guianan Cock-of-the-rock remains nearly motionless beside a small nest. Unlike many birds that build nests hidden inside thick branches, this species often places nests against vertical rock faces or inside protected cliff-like spaces where moisture stays constant and vegetation hangs nearby. The structure itself is small and compact, formed from mud, plant fibers, and soft material collected from surrounding forest growth. Inside the nest rest 1 or 2 pale eggs. The female remains alert but quiet. Around her, the forest continues moving. Small insects travel across bark. Rainwater drips from moss-covered stone. Distant bird calls echo through layers of vegetation. Fruit falls occasionally through upper branches, disappearing into leaves below. For several weeks, little changes can be seen from outside the nest. The female spends long periods incubating, leaving only briefly to search for food before returning again. During these absences, the eggs remain exposed for only short periods. The surrounding shade helps maintain stable temperature, while the rock surface offers protection from heavy rain and shifting wind. Eventually, movement begins inside the shell. Tiny cracks form gradually. The hatchling emerges slowly, wet and weak, unable to lift itself properly. Its body bears almost no resemblance to the bright orange adults that gather elsewhere in the forest. The skin appears exposed in places, covered only by sparse down. Its eyes remain closed. Neck movement is weak and unstable. On the first day, movement remains limited. The hatchling spends most of its time pressed low against the nest surface. Small body movements happen mostly when the female returns. Feeding begins immediately. The mother arrives carrying softened fruit gathered from nearby vegetation, sometimes mixed with small insects that provide additional nutrients during early development. The hatchling responds through simple movement. Its neck stretches upward briefly, mouth opening wide. Coordination remains poor. Often the effort lasts only seconds before balance fails again. The female stays nearby. At this stage, survival depends almost entirely on protection and feeding consistency. The nest location helps reduce exposure to predators, though danger still remains. Tree-climbing snakes sometimes move along nearby rock surfaces. Small forest mammals search sheltered spaces for eggs or hatchlings. Heavy rain can shift mud and loosen plant material near nesting areas. By the 5th day, visible changes begin appearing. The body grows slightly larger. Sparse covering becomes more noticeable. Neck strength improves enough for longer feeding responses. The eyes begin opening gradually, though vision remains limited. The hatchling now reacts to movement near the nest, especially the return of the mother. Feeding becomes more frequent. The female spends much of the day searching fruiting trees throughout the surrounding forest. Guianan Cock-of-the-rocks depend heavily on fruit. Small berries and soft forest fruits make up most of their diet, though insects are sometimes included, especially during development when additional protein supports growth. The female often swallows food first, later transferring softened portions directly into the hatchling's mouth. At this stage, begging behavior becomes easier to recognize. The hatchling lifts higher when movement approaches. The neck extends farther. Calls become slightly stronger, though still soft and brief. Around the 15th day, stability begins improving. The body now supports short periods of upright posture. Weak standing attempts appear inside the nest, though balance remains unreliable. Short wing movements begin, not for flight, but for stability. Small feathers emerge more clearly, replacing exposed skin. Still, color remains muted. Nothing yet suggests the intense orange appearance seen later in adult males. The surrounding rainforest continues shaping survival. Humidity stays high. Rain arrives without warning. During storms, the female lowers herself over the hatchling. protecting it from direct exposure. Water moves quickly down rock surfaces, while branches above shift heavily under wind. The hatchling reacts mostly through stillness. By the 30th day, movement becomes more controlled. Standing improves. Small hops occur inside the nest. Wing stretching becomes common. The young bird now watches movement outside more carefully, turning its head toward insects, passing shadows, or nearby sounds. Feeding changes slowly. The mother still delivers most food, but the young bird begins pecking experimentally at small objects nearby. Fragments of fruit dropped inside the nest sometimes receive repeated attention before being swallowed. Not every attempt succeeds. Small pieces are often dropped or ignored before another try follows. As the weeks continue, feather growth increases across the body. The young bird begins showing fuller shape, though coloration remains dull compared to adults. Browns and muted shades dominate appearance, helping reduce visibility among shaded branches and forest rock. Bright coloration would offer little advantage here. Remaining difficult to detect improves survival. Around day 60, movement outside the nest begins. Short branch transfers appear cautiously. The first steps remain unstable. Gripping ability develops through repeated effort. The young bird occasionally slips, correcting balance with quick wing movement before settling again. Most travel remains close to the nest, while the female stays nearby. Observation becomes important. Young birds begin watching surrounding forest behavior. Fruit locations matter. Safe movement between branches matters. Sudden motion from predators matters. A shadow passing overhead triggers immediate stillness. Movement stops. The young bird lowers itself close to the branch. Above, a forest hawk moves between openings in the canopy before disappearing again. These reactions improve gradually through repetition rather than instinct alone. The mother continues feeding, but less often now. Dependency slowly decreases. The young bird starts searching independently, pecking soft fruit surfaces and learning which shapes, colors, and scents signal edible food. Some attempts fail. Unripe fruit gets abandoned quickly. Hard surfaces require repeated pecking before being ignored. Mistakes happen often during early independence, but improvement becomes visible with time. As weeks continue, the young Guianan Cock-of-the-rock begins spending longer periods away from the nest area. The female still remains nearby at times, but feeding assistance decreases steadily. The rainforest now becomes the primary environment shaping survival. By around day 70, branch movement improves noticeably. The young bird no longer pauses after every short hop. Feet grip more securely against wet bark. Balance corrections happen faster. Short gliding movements between lower branches begin appearing, though true confident navigation still takes time. The forest remains difficult terrain. Rainfall keeps surfaces slippery. Moss covers exposed roots and rock edges. Dense vegetation limits visibility. Moving carelessly through these layers increases risk from predators waiting unseen. At times, sudden movement overhead forces immediate reaction. A shadow crossing through the canopy causes nearby birds to freeze. The young cock-of-the-rock quickly lowers its body and remains motionless against darker branches. Forest hawks patrol these areas, searching for exposed movement rather than specific shapes. Remaining still often matters more than escaping quickly. As feeding becomes more independent, fruit searching develops into a daily routine. The young bird begins moving through lower and middle forest levels, where fruiting shrubs and small trees grow in patches. Selection still involves mistakes. Some fruit proves too firm. Others fall before proper grip is achieved. Occasionally, insects moving across leaves become targets of quick pecks. Small beetles, larvae, and soft-bodied insects provide extra nutrients during continued growth. By day 90, physical appearance begins changing more noticeably. Feathers appear fuller and more structured. Body shape becomes more compact and balanced. Movement loses much of its early instability, but the most visible changes remain subtle. For young males, color development starts slowly. The body still lacks the vivid brightness seen in adults, yet faint orange tones begin appearing beneath muted feathers. These early colors often remain difficult to notice inside forest shade. The crest also begins developing. At first, it appears only as slight feather growth above the head, lacking the large curved shape adult males later display. From a distance, nothing yet looks unusual. The young bird continues watching older individuals whenever possible. Adult Guianan Cock-of-the-rocks sometimes gather in predictable areas of forest where visibility improves beneath open canopy breaks. These locations become important later in life, especially for males. At first, the young bird approaches cautiously. The activity looks unusual. Several bright birds move through the same clearing. Some remain perched nearby, while others hop rapidly across exposed roots and low branches. Quick movements happen between males. Wings flick outward briefly, heads lower, bodies angle forward before returning upright again. The younger bird does not join. It watches from surrounding vegetation. The behavior repeats often, especially during breeding periods. For now, observation matters more than participation. Around day 120, independence becomes more complete. The female appears less frequently. Food searching now happens alone. Forest routes become familiar. Fruiting areas are revisited. Feeding efficiency improves. Short flights between branches grow more controlled, allowing the young bird to cover larger areas while avoiding exposed openings. Mistakes still happen. Occasional poor landings force awkward recovery. Sudden storms interrupt feeding routes. Larger birds sometimes push younger individuals away from fruit sources. Competition becomes part of survival. Physical appearance continues changing gradually. Orange coloration strengthens across the body, though not evenly at first. Some areas brighten faster than others. Feathers around the back and chest begin reflecting warmer tones when sunlight breaks through canopy openings. The crest grows larger. Its shape slowly curves forward, becoming more recognizable with time. Still, the bird does not yet resemble the intense orange adults that dominate display grounds. Months continue passing. The rainforest changes with seasonal fruit availability. Some feeding areas become active while others grow temporarily quiet. The young cock-of-the-rock adapts by moving farther through familiar routes, learning where food remains dependable. Predator awareness improves through experience. Movement through open spaces becomes quicker. Dense cover receives preference during uncertain conditions. Sudden forest silence often causes hesitation before continuing. By young adulthood, physical transformation becomes difficult to ignore. The orange deepens. What once appeared muted now begins standing out clearly against surrounding green forest shade. The crest becomes fuller and more pronounced, arching over the beak in the species' recognizable shape. But coloration alone does not complete adulthood. Behavior must also change. Near established display areas, the young male begins approaching more often. These gathering spaces, known as leks, remain unlike most feeding areas. Several males occupy the same clearing, each attempting to hold favorable positions. Competition happens through movement and display rather than physical fighting. Bright bodies move rapidly against dark forest ground. Some males hop sideways, others spread wings, slightly before lowering posture. Calls echo briefly through surrounding trees. The young male begins practicing. At first, the movements appear uncoordinated. A short jump happens too early. Balance shifts awkwardly during turns. Body posture lacks the precision seen in experienced adults. Timing remains inconsistent. Other males continue displaying without interruption. Learning happens mostly through repeated observation. The young male returns often. Each visit improves coordination slightly. Head movements become sharper. Timing improves. Short hops connect more smoothly. The body learns rhythm through repetition. Competition pressure also increases. Adult males guard the best positions within the lek. Younger birds remain toward outer areas, where visibility decreases and opportunities stay limited. Only stronger displays attract attention. Months later, the transformation finally reaches its most recognizable stage. Deep inside the rainforest, where shadows dominate the forest floor, sudden flashes of orange begin appearing once again. But now the source looks very different from the weak hatchling resting against rock walls months earlier. The body glows bright orange. The crest arches forward in a smooth curved shape above the beak. Black wings and tail contrast sharply against vivid plumage. When movement begins, the forest clearing changes instantly. Several males gather together. One lowers its body. Another hops sideways across exposed roots. Bright orange feathers move rapidly through filtered light. Wings flick outward. Heads tilt. Calls sound through surrounding vegetation. The young male now joins fully. Movements that once looked uncertain now happen with coordination. Short leaps connect smoothly. Posture remains controlled. Timing matches surrounding activity. Competition continues constantly. Some males dominate central spaces. Others remain farther back. Not every display succeeds. Not every season leads to mating opportunities. But the gathering continues. Long before sunrise, males often return to the same display grounds. Throughout the season, movement repeats. Bright orange birds transform shaded rainforest openings into sudden bursts of motion. Yet this display depends on survival that started much earlier. A hatchling unable to stand. Weak feeding responses inside a small cliffside nest. Slow feather growth. Failed landings. Mistakes in feeding. Observation. Practice. Gradual change. Inside one of the darkest forests in South America, the Guianan Cock-of-the-rock does not begin life as the glowing figure seen in adulthood. Its brightest display arrives only after months of steady development, survival learning, and repeated competition hidden beneath rainforest cover. And by the time the forest suddenly erupts with orange movement, the long process behind that display has already happened almost entirely out of sight.